Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Bass Fishing Declassified. Today the team is going to be talking about common crankbait mistakes that a lot of anglers make in the wintertime. Got some really good tips and advice for you guys here. First of all, this video is brought to you by Bridgeford Food Corporation, the makers of the Sweet Baby Ray beef jerky. And guys, all you have to do to be eligible to win a case of this jerky is just comment on this video and we'll put you in a drawing. Somebody's going to win a whole case of this stuff, man. This is awesome boat food. You guys will just love it. So stay tuned. Here we go with some good tips. You know, winter is really relative to the part of the country that you live in, because I think a lot of people, they think about winter as like being super cold like it is up north, but the country is so big that there's a lot of different geographical regions where wintertime is relative to that area. So when we talk about winter, what we're talking about is the part of the country that you live in when your temperatures are at their lowest, normally like in late December, January, early February. And there's a couple different things to consider on this. I think the first and the most common mistake anglers make in wintertime crankbait fishing is simply fishing the crankbait too fast. You know, the bass's metabolisms are slow and you've got to slow down with that. Not necessarily that you have to just crawl it along, but you have to really focus on that slow to medium retrieve with a stop and go. That's one of the big keys with it. Another thing is the type of wobble and color that your crankbait has. What you're going to find for most times in crankbait fishing in the wintertime is anytime that you have water temperatures anywhere between like 40 to low 50s, it's relative to the water clarity, because the water temperature and the water clarity will determine the crankbait wobble that you need. And here's a general foundation, a good rule of thumb. When the water visibility is a little bit off colored, say if you have water visibility that is under 3 foot in visibility, and that you have water temperatures anywhere between say low 40s to mid 50s, that's when you need to go to a smaller, tight wobbling crankbait like a Rapala Shad Rap or flat-sided crankbait. They're going to get you a lot of bites when that water's cold and a little bit off colored. Now if the water clarity is a little bit cleaner, say if you've got over 3 foot of clarity, that's when I like to go to a wider wobbling crankbait like a Storm Wiggle Wart or a rock crawler, Spro rock crawler, something like that works really good. The wide wobbling crankbaits in the wintertime are going to get you a few more bites in that little bit clearer water. Now another thing to consider is the color patterns that you want to fish. Color patterns are key in the wintertime, and for the most part I found out that a shad pattern crankbait will get you more bites in the early to mid-winter, and then when you start getting into the late part of winter, say like late January and February, the crawdad patterns start working a little bit better, you know, the reds and the oranges. So overall, here's just the recap of it. You know, fish those tighter wobbling shad pattern crankbaits in cold water. If the water's a little bit on the stain side, go to the wider wobbling crankbaits if a little bit cleaner, and go to your crawfish patterns as you get closer to the pre-spawn. And try this, keep your crankbait retrieve to slow to medium retrieve. Try to always keep it knocking on the bottom and concentrate around rock in the wintertime, and it'll add up to some good crankbait fish. We'll see y'all next time.
A common mistake that I see anglers make in the winter on crankbaits, and it's a mistake I made for a very long time in my fishing career, is understanding that you can actually catch fish really shallow on a crankbait during the winter months. I'm talking shallow as inches of water to about 5 to 6 feet. In the past couple of years, this has been a time for me to where I've caught some of my biggest fish shallow on crankbaits. I'm talking crankbaits that can be your flat-sided crankbaits that can go in that 4 to 6 foot range, or a lipless crankbait. Now for this, you do have to understand there are some conditions and variables in play to make this be a tactic to do. Of course, water clarity is a big one. If you have water visibility that's muddy to stain, it's going to be a little easier to catch some fish shallow on a crankbait. But my clear water guys, you can still catch fish on your clear water main lake areas if you have the right cover and the wind conditions. Now to share another experience in a story, one of my former student anglers, a kid that I coached as a 9th and 10th grader, then I left that school and went to another school, but we have stayed really close. We talk and fish all the time. When I started kind of getting on this, we were kind of communicating back and forth, and he would go out and actually catch fish shallow in certain areas that I would share with them, and we were trying to bounce off ideas to where like we can pinpoint this and not waste time fishing shallow areas, but to be more effective. And then this last year, 2022, he came down and fished with me twice on a local highland reservoir, and it was in both December and January. That January day, y'all, it was a day where the water temperatures were 46, 47 degrees. We only caught, I believe, 6 fish that day. Bluebird skied, really, really cold day. Out of those 6 fish, our 5 went for right over 20 pounds. And 4 of our fish were caught on shallow running crankbaits. That day we caught a fish on a DT6, we caught fish on the lipless crankbaits, and then what that day did for him was a voila moment. Cannon is his name. Cannon Harmon is his name. He fished BFLs this year as a 19-year-old kid on the pro side. Once again, this is one of my former anglers, a kid I coach, and one of my good friends right now. Cannon then took from fishing with me on that day and put everything together from his trips in the recent years to use this in the early winter tournaments in the BFL Archie division here in Arkansas. At Lake Ouachita, which was a February event, he got second place. I believe he had 16, maybe 17 pounds. I don't know exactly, but he got second place on the pro side as a 19-year-old. He had the big bass for that tournament. He had a 607, I believe. It was 607 or 604. And he caught that fish on a shallow running crankbait that was on the main lake. Now, with all that, like I said, we and him have bounced ideas back and forth to put this together. He has fished a lot to figure it out. But I'm sharing with y'all today this story about hey, you can catch fish shallow in the winter on a crankbait. Do not miss out on that bite. It is a bite that will produce some big fish.
All right, guys, so we're talking about wintertime crankbait fishing and some of the mistakes that people make cranking during cold water periods. So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they use the wrong crankbait, you know, the wrong action crankbait. And I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. Now, there are always exceptions to these rules that I'm going to say right now. But in general, I want to use a crankbait during the coldest months that is a little bit tighter of a wobble. Okay, this bait right here, this is a very, very effective traditional wintertime crankbait. It's called a Rapala DT6, really, really good. The Shad Rap is also a well-known one by Rapala. New Berkeley Fritz side. You can see it's got a flat design to it, and it's got a narrow bill as well, and it creates a very, very narrow wobbling action. Okay, now that I've said that I like those narrow wobble crankbaits, those tight wobble crankbaits during the wintertime, the reason for that is because most forage is has a little bit more of a subdued action. It's not as erratic, and those tight wobble crankbaits tend to do better this time of year during the colder months. However, I don't want you to think that only tight wobble crankbaits can be the ticket. Now, one example of this is a very, very popular bait during the colder months, and especially clear water, clear rocky lakes, is like a rock crawler or wiggle wart style bait. It's got a wider wobble, it's got a lot of action to it, and it's got that wider lip to it. So you can catch fish during the winter time on wide wobbling crankbaits, but honestly, the wiggle wart and the rock crawler, those are kind of more exceptions to the rule. So in general, to kind of condense this idea down, during the winter time, with a few exceptions, as I mentioned here, the best crankbaits are going to have a narrower bill design, like the DT6, or in general have flatter sides, flat sides, thinner bill, tighter wobble. Those are going to be crankbaits that for sure are going to work during the wintertime. Another thing that I need to mention about wintertime fishing, I'm going to add a bonus mistake that a lot of people make in here, is a lot of people don't change out the stock hooks on their crankbaits. Now, some crankbaits come with really good stock hooks. but most crankbaits from the factory do not come with really good hooks. So you want to change them out with premium hooks. These right here, the Hayabusa 930s, TBLs, and you want extra sharp hooks during the wintertime and the colder months because those fish are not going to get the bait very well sometimes. So you want to have those needle sharp hooks to be able to grab onto those fish so they're not able to spit it out or miss it. And you know, also the mouths of fish are going to be harder. They're going to be tougher during the colder months. And so you need a much sharper hook during the winter than you do during the summer in general. So anyways, those are two mistakes that I see people make with wintertime cranking.
Thank you for watching today's video on Bass Fishing Declassified. Hey, go ahead, leave us a comment so we can go ahead and see if we can pull your name for our Bridgeford beef jerky giveaway. Like I said, your comment can be a tip that you have learned that's something new, or it could be something that you already know, such as catching fish shallow on crankbaits. Go ahead, just go ahead, subscribe to the channel if you have not. We appreciate everybody watching and giving us feedback. Like I said, this channel is brand new. We're getting it going and going. We're trying to try to get out for sure 2 videos a week, possibly 3. But like I said, we're here trying to give y'all information to help every one of y'all catch fish. No matter where you're at in the part of the country, you have a couple different personalities. As you see, you have your professionals that have been in this business for 10 plus years on the tour. Then you have, you know, Johnny, the fishing professor. And then, you know, I just showed up somehow. Johnny pulled me out of the woods and said, hey, here you go. So we have a bunch of different personalities. Like I said, so we appreciate you. We're going to also, as you get knowing, we're going to get more anglers on the channel as we get this going. Right now, this is just the team as it is, but we are hoping to get this channel to grow one day and to be one of the bigger channels on YouTube. But we can't do this without you, the people watching. Thank you for watching. Hey, we will see you in the next video.